Empowering minority entrepreneurs and accelerating their level of productivity is critical to strengthen the U.S. competitiveness nationally and worldwide. Today's guest is Dr. Melvin Gravely, the founder of the Institute of Entrepreneurial Thinking. Dr. Gravely has been a guest on many radio shows from Black Enterprise and Minority and Women Businesses to Ebony magazines and entrepreneurial magazines. I really appreciate Dr. Melvin Gravely's leadership, his thoughtfulness, and the way that he has brought changed leadership in the minds of working with people. He's the author of 4 books, The Lost Ark of Entrepreneurship, When Black and White Make Green, and his latest book, Getting to the Next Level. Dr. Gravely, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me, Farad.
Well, so I'm glad to have you on the show, and I really wanted to talk to you about this kind of the business of what's going on now. We've talked about some of the stats and how minority business has impacted our U.S. economy. But right now we're in an element of change. We see that the stock market has not been performing well. We've lost some industries. We have a new Fortune 500 because so many of the companies are merging or doing strategic alliances or just going out of business. So we have these minority firms that are participating either as suppliers or working with these businesses, and they're not doing well. This new economic normal, what do you think about this and how it's impacted minority businesses?
Well, I think a lot of the way it impacted minority businesses is how it's impacted suppliers in general. And so when your customers struggle, suppliers tend to struggle, and the fewer number of customers you have, the more reliant you are on that customer, and if they struggle, you can struggle in a disproportionate way. And I think that fact has really added to the magnitude of the impact on minority companies. They tend to have fewer and very large customers, and if that customer struggles, they get a disproportionate downturn in their business as well.
So what do minority businesses going to have to do to remain competitive in that instance? Because what I'm hearing from you is if the big businesses go down and the minority suppliers are underneath that, they also going to lose sales and revenues and ultimately profits. So what do we need to do to help them, or what information can we give minority businesses to remain competitive in this new economic?
Well, I think in general, if I had to give a top-line answer to that, I would say we've got to have better strategy-driven businesses and less contract-driven businesses. And so let me just give you a couple of broad items that I think are impacting the minority business market, and I think that we just aren't talking about enough. One of them is a change from a supply chain to a supply flow. A supply flow is different than a supply chain because a chain insinuates there are links that we can take out and put in, and it's easier to pull pieces out of it and replace them with other pieces. That's changing in the marketplace now. It looks more like a flow of supply, which means it's harder to get in and harder to be taken out once you're in. And so becoming a part of that supply flow or understanding what the implications are for your business is a big deal. The second is something everyone talks about, but I don't think they really embrace. The global nature of our business economy now is different than it used to be, and I don't think the perspective of minority business owners has grown to that level yet in any significant way. We talk about being global, but we think very, very local. And then the third item is that the reality is going to be that there are going to be fewer, larger suppliers to companies. And the reason is because everyone's going to see risk differently in the future than they saw before. They're going to be willing to take fewer risk, which means doing business with fewer smaller companies, doing business with companies they know very well, doing business with companies that have very strong financial statements. Risk is going to drive a change in behavior of how things are bought and sold in this country, and I think that perspective adds to the need to change and need to see things differently.
Yeah, some of our listeners are going to probably want to get a clear understanding of this supply chain, this supply flow. And I believe what you're saying is that these companies will become more partners and integrated and collaborative so that it's no longer a chain, but more we have to work together hand in hand for this to work.
Even beyond that, Farad, absolutely it's that. But it's also the reality that getting in will be much more difficult. So new breakthroughs with new customers will become increasingly difficult, and your value proposition will have to be overwhelmingly strong. The second piece is once you're in, the demands on your ability to consistently perform will be at a level that we've never seen before. The combination says we've got to have stronger strategically aligned businesses, strategically focused businesses. the idea of taking on a contract because you can do it will become so obsolete. You'll be looking to take on new supply flow roles because you can be great at it, not just because you can perform that duty. So it's going to be a different level of expectation of performance that really adds to that flow versus the chain, which if you don't perform in the chain, we just simply take you out and plug someone else in. That's not the way business is working now and how it's going to work in the future.
Dr. Gravely, I'd like to learn more about this strategic partnerships. We hear the word strategic partnerships and just engaging, and a lot of us may or may not have a clear understanding. So in the business marketplace, when you talk about strategic partnerships and value proposition, how do they work together with minority businesses and corporations?
Yeah, I think they start with everyone understanding that they have a right to decide what kind of business they want to be in, and that the customer, so it's the difference between jumping on what you see, which is the opportunist approach. Right. So they've got a contract. I'm going to jump on it because I see it.
Right.
And the contrast is seeing what you should jump on. So deciding we're going to be great in a particular market because we know that market's important, and having an infrastructure that can be great at doing it, and therefore looking for those opportunities that particularly fit your company. It starts with the individual business owner's strategic view. You link that then to the strategic view of your target customers, and that's how you get strategic alignment. They're going a particular place, and you're going there with them because you see what they see.
So that means minority businesses are going to have to really start engaging more with not just their supply chain cohorts or their network or their procurement people, but really understanding the business from a global standpoint and what the goals and the missions and the values are so that they can align themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, that happens whenever you move from trying to get the next contract to trying to really understand where's your customer going to be in the next 5 years. That's strategic.
So how do you deal with the globalization? Right now in our economy, everything is global. And I agree that I think business local is also very global because we're competing. I was talking with a business owner recently, and he was telling me he's an accountant and how he wants to grow his business. And I was indicating to him that he's like, well, I want to do competitive analysis in the marketing. And we talked about how they're doing accounting in other countries. So let's talk about this kind of globalization. Let's weed through this globalization and doing business globally and understanding our competitors are also globally in every phase. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I say our competitors are global, but our partners are global as well. Again, I hate to keep going back to strategy, but if your business, if you're a supplier and you have a corporate strategy, something that says we're 10 years out, this is our vision of the world, then that vision is going to include competitors and partners that might happen not to be within the borders of the United States of America. And it's all dependent on the basic trends going on in, where the low-cost countries are and how products are moving from place to place, and how can you be great in the business you've decided to be in. Once you get that framework, Farad, it becomes much easier to determine who your partners ought to be and who your competitors will be.
So if I'm hearing what you're saying to me and I would like to be an entrepreneur, what are some of the keys? I know you've written some books on entrepreneurial thinking. So what are some of the keys in being an entrepreneur and wanting to come into this economy? Because in the time when we're having downsizing or right-sizing, I think this is an opportunity for people to be more entrepreneurial and more innovative. And I do believe that innovation is the child of need. And when there's a need, people become more creative and innovative. What are some of your ideas on what are some of the tools that people need to have in having entrepreneurial thinking to be successful?